Last time we saw Bucky, we presumed him dead, but he comes back from the grave with a price on Cap's head. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 16. Happy New Year. Happy 2019. Happy New Year, Jeff. How's it been going so far these few days in?
So good. I mean, I like New Year's because, I guess it's a cliche way to reason to like it, because I like starting over, cleaning the house, being like, okay, let's do this. I clean the pantry. That's like a once in a year thing, right?
Right, organizing the pantry. It's amazing how quickly that thing falls apart. I don't understand it, right? Because you think if everyone put stuff back in the proper place, you wouldn't have to organize the pantry, but certain times, stuff does not end up where it's supposed to go.
Absolutely. But cross my fingers, it stays clean for at least another week.
I will cross my fingers for you. I think as long as you keep Harrison, the dog, out of it, should be okay. Right? They're very messy. But anyway, we're here. We're here to talk about a great movie at the start of the year, 2014's Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Arguably, I think both of our opinion lies in the fact that this is the best Marvel movie, maybe tied with Infinity War. Now that Infinity War is out, Jeff, where does it lie for you?
I think this one is better. In my opinion, I think it's a better film only because, well, a lot of reasons. I think we can dive right into it. I think this movie and a lot of reviewers, first of all, I can't believe that this was 2014. It was that long ago, which is nuts to me. But a lot of reviewers agree with what I think here, is that this movie can stand alone on its own as its own amazing film without knowing much, if any, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Infinity War pulls at our heartstrings in the same way that the original Avengers did, which was, holy crap, all of these actors and all of these performers are in the same movie together. Oh my God, it's so good. Like, that's what the original Avengers did, right? Infinity War does that same thing. Oh, they're adding Spider-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy and all this stuff. Holy God, it's awesome. But this movie, I think, is just a really good movie.
Hands down, yeah. I think the reviews did a great job explaining that it's just a fun film. You've got likable characters, both good guys and bad guys. You've got an intriguing plot with, I really wanted to talk about the setup, because watching this again for I don't even know how many times I've watched this movie, the setup is incredible for all the stuff we see. And something I noticed this past time, why do we see the captain running in the morning with DC? Does he have to do it? No, but without it, why would we believe he could book it across a ship that's probably 2 football fields long in the amount of time it takes him to do it? It's such a great setup. And then the jumps, like he dives out of a plane at the start without a parachute. And you think it's just a throwaway line, but then the rest of the movie, he's falling out of windows onto his shield and he's totally okay.
Yeah, he's an absolute badass. And I think that another reason this film is really good, and there's nothing against superhero films, right? We all love those movies like Avengers, and, a lot of people are liking Aquaman and all of these movies that are out, which are just out of this world. They have the Superman syndrome, right? Where you are an actual superhero. Aquaman can breathe underwater, superhero, like all of these, crazy hero movies. But this film almost feels like an action spy movie. Almost. There are some fantasy elements of the story, obviously, but the fact that Captain America is like an actual person, and he does superhero things, but they're not like flying or he's super strong, but he doesn't pick up buildings, stuff like that.
Yeah, right. He's a super soldier. He's not a superhuman. So it's simply the fact that his soldier aspects, I guess, are enhanced rather than laser eyes, right? He doesn't get weird genetic mutations and suddenly he can call forth the lightning powers of Zeus. He's just a guy, a wholesome, all-American guy. And this is something I wanted to ask you about. So Captain America is the good old boy. He's the last true hero, the last true American hero, if you will. And he has this very set moral standard that we definitely see it comes from an earlier time period, that glorified World War II, love your family, love your God, love your country kind of a thing. So it's a paladin almost, but he's not annoying with it. So how do you think they pulled off this kind of black and white morality without making him too pushy or too annoying?
I think what it is the conflict in his mind that makes it not annoying, right? I mean, there is a ton of conflict, internal conflict in this film when it comes to Captain Rogers, Black Widow. I mean, even, you're looking at the internal conflict of Sam Jackson's character. Like, all of these people are conflicted. They're really strong in their beliefs, like Captain America, but there's that time and those moments where he's thinking about Bucky, he's thinking about what this person is actually doing, and then decides in the film what he needs to do, right? It's not already decided for him, if that makes sense. Where when we think of what you like to call the paladin, the whole paladin mindset of all of this stuff, and in a lot of fantasy, we talk about paladins, and they're black and white, and there is no turning them, right? I mean, they are just, they're gonna believe it, and they're gonna do whatever the light tells them to do, and they're just gonna do that. But I mean, Captain America has this internal conflict, and you can see it happening. I think that's why it's less annoying. Obviously, foreshadowing what happens in Civil War and the whole, I got to fight for what I actually believe in, and then talking to his friends who believe what they believe. And then, I mean, I think it's really well done where it's black and white, but it doesn't feel black and white.
Yeah, there are certain standards he has that and he holds himself to. So maybe because he doesn't try to really force it on anybody else, that we don't see too much of a pushback. He respects what other people believe. And like Natasha's lifestyle, he'll throw out a few jabs at her, living a very lonely life, but he doesn't begrudge her for it. That's just who she is. And he still fights by her side and all that. Yeah, I like that. And so you're watching this film for the first time, Jeff. And I remember my moment, but do you remember yours when you were sold? You were like, oh, I'm so into this movie. I am in it 110%. There's no coming back.
Oh, the aircraft carrier or the ship at the beginning of the film. I think like when he's fighting at the very, very, very beginning of the movie, I loved it. I mean, Kristen, when I play these games, whenever I play a game or I want to, go into a fantasy world in D&D or whatever, I like to play the characters that are up close and personal. I'm not a caster in the back, like doing serious damage, but from the back. Captain America has that feel in this film, especially where at the very beginning with the sound design and everything when he's fighting and the shield is like, I mean, the sound design is amazing. When he does a somersault and the shield hits the ground as he's doing a full somersault, the sound is so good. And it's funny to talk about it so much, but it makes it for me. He's punching people and kicking them over the side and you're doing all this stuff. He's up close and personal. I love the beginning of the film. I love the first fight. The fact that they got like a UFC fighter to come in and be the guy that he was fighting against in that moment is so cool to me. I mean, I'm not into UFC, but I mean, it was cool to see that.
Wait, you mean the dude doing all the flips and everything? He's a UFC fighter?
Yeah, the bald guy at the very beginning, like the main target on the ship that they're fighting. He's an actual UFC fighter.
That's so good. I bet he was so excited. So I don't know if you know this, but did he do his own flips and stunts and everything?
I don't know, but I would assume. I mean, especially the fighting. I mean, they show his face the entire time, right? It's easy for Captain America to be a stunt double because he's wearing a full on suit. But this guy, I mean, if it's not him, it's real close.
Right, and how cool is it too that they set up, because it's kind of like a red herring. I almost felt it, because I thought it was going to be a super soldier movie. Because who was this guy who could stand against Captain for so long? Clearly, he's not fully human, right? Maybe. So initially, I thought it was going to be a serum got out. Everyone's a super soldier, and Captain's going to have to fight clones of himself, but no. That's not it. It's very, very different, and we pull in my favorite character, I think, in this whole freaking movie because his arm and go back to the sound design. Bucky Barnes' metal arm is the coolest thing because it's moving and it's making those whirring sounds as it's going, and the moment Bucky caught Captain's shield, that was the moment for me.
Really, yeah, it's really good. I mean, all of it is really, really good. And you're right, Bucky is a great quote unquote villain in this movie. I mean, there's a great conflict there, and the movie does such a great job with, you know, foreshadowing and creating this element of uh I mean, PTSD, really. I mean, they talk about it, and they talk about how, at the VA, when they go to the VA and they're talking about all this stuff. And then that foreshadows the way that Bucky is feeling about everything that's happening, and he's being brainwashed and all this kind of stuff. And what does war actually do to you? And all of these types of things. The movie sets itself up so well, like you said at the beginning. I mean, even down to the littlest things, jumping out without a parachute. You believe the rest of the movie because he did it at the very beginning. But there's tons of examples of that stuff.
So talking about, I know we're going to talk about Bucky a lot, but let's keep on with this character discussion. So Black Widow is one that came up in both of our points. What did you want to say about Black Widow?
Well, I think that she is, and it got confirmed recently that there's going to be a standalone Black Widow film. It's in production already. So it's an interesting thought, and I'm not sure how I feel about it in general, only because it works with Captain America, right? Because we have built in this character, and there's this whole, tragic backstory and all this stuff that's happened. So they're going to have to do that with Black Widow to make us really care about what's going on, because her character in the movie, to me, is probably the least needed in a lot of ways. Like, we could write this movie without Scarlett Johansson's character in it. But she does a good job. I wasn't ever super familiar with Black Widow before the movie, so I had no expectations of what Black Widow should be. Were you, Kristen? Did you know of this character from comics and things like that, and had an expectation before watching any of the Marvel movies?
No, my only fear was that they were going to try and make her as strong as the supers, which bothers me because she's human, and B, let's not deny the fact she's a tiny girl. She's a tiny girl up against these 200-pound plus behemoths of muscle and god power. So that's where I was scared it was gonna go wrong. And in this movie, I think they do a great job. She's a very cool foil to Captain because she's technologically advanced. She knows about spy stuff, which Rogers does not know about. She knows technology, so she gets to do that. They give her the joke about getting Rogers a date from the beginning, so automatically we know she's not interested in him, so there's not going to be any weird romance subplot with that. And they make it clear, especially in that first fight between Rogers and Bucky, that she is no match for Bucky. Absolutely no match. And her fight is great because she goes in, she gets a nasty hit, and she runs as far and as fast as she can. And she kind of does that back and forth, which I think works really well.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, on all this stuff, I totally agree. I think that she is her relationship with Captain America is probably one of the best parts of the film that goes unnoticed because of what you just said. They don't set them up to be love interests. They set them up to be friends. They have a genuine interaction with each other the entire film, where I also feel like for Black Widow in the movie, it's hard. I mean, that is such a hard character to portray, right? Somebody that's gone through everything that we know, and we obviously don't know everything, but everything that Black Widow has gone through, I mean, it would be easy to play them super flat, like super I'm angry all the time, and I'm just all this kind of stuff. But she doesn't do that in this movie. In the other movies, I do see that a little bit, where it's just like, I'm angsty, I'm angry, I'm Black Widow. But in this one, she's human. Like she humanizes herself a little bit. Even at the beginning, where there's that little smirk when she pulls up in the car. I mean, that's the sort of stuff is good. That nuance makes her more believable. And like you said, Kristen, I think that this overall Captain America Winter Soldier is like a action spy movie with a sprinkling of superhero-ness. So like think of movies like, any 007 James Bond film. It's got the same type of plot, right? Somebody's out to destroy the entire world, but they're going to do it in this cool way, right? And then James Bond's like, no, you're not, because I'm a super spy. And he's got to go to different places and find super things and get into some fights in like bathroom stalls and stuff like that. There's always a freaking bathroom stall.
Exactly. You don't know who you can trust, but I don't know. Maybe it was the cool. Maybe people really like bathrooms, and I mean, Mission Impossible Fallout, which I recently saw, had an extended bathroom fight scene. But when you load your fists, I'm okay with an extended bathroom fight scene.
Yeah. So, but that's my point. Is like, so she fits well in this movie, I think, because of the feel of the film. It's not like a superhero movie where in some other movies, even the first Avengers, I feel like she doesn't have a cool bow and arrow that shoots, like tracing darts, or I mean, she's got electronic fists,
And
kind of.
gymnastics.
The power of gymnastics.
I know it's really hard to classify because you have to write a plot specifically for spy stuff that big hulking superhumans can't do because they're just so obviously not a part of the thing. And what one thing I thought about that maybe should have been done with Black Widow's characters, because every movie she has a very different look, hairstyle and kind of makeup genre and everything. And I think what they're trying to do is go with the idea that she is a spy. So she changes her appearance all the time. So maybe in every movie she should have done an appearance change like in this one, which I thought it works so well, because if you watch the film and you pay attention to how they film the older British woman who's on the council, they give her some very important setup shots that make you really kind of pay attention to this woman and catalog that maybe she's going to be important later. And sure enough, when she arrives in person, there are very important shots on this woman, but you don't really suspect it's Widow because we've already had this buildup to these shots.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. It's smart. And that's really, if I'm thinking back to every Marvel movie I've seen, that's one of the very few moments where Black Widow shows her, other than fighting, obviously, shows her spyness, like I'm a spy. And it's cool. And I mean, I feel the same sort of way about Nick Fury in a couple of different ways, right? I mean, I think that he is outstanding in this movie, but in the other films, I'm not sure that I fully relate. I can't fully buy Nick Fury in some of these other movies. Like, he has a more human feel in this one, where he's vulnerable and he's actually in the action. He's not just the guy that shows up and tells you what you got to do and off to the next quest kind of thing. He's not a quest giver. He's like a companion in this movie. And I think it's very, very well done with him. What do you think about Nick Fury?
Yeah, like you said, in this film, he's so great because he's very humanized. He almost dies. I mean, of course, they set it up that he apparently dies, which we find out later is a whole ruse to kind of separate the true people of S.H.I.E.L.D. from Hydra as much as possible. But yeah, he's not some all-knowing, which is the big thing, right? He's taken down a peg. Before, he's this all-knowing, all-powerful, untouchable badass. And then he's not all-knowing anymore, but he's still a badass, which is great.
He is a total badass for sure.
And how did you did you notice this? But the voiceover in his car, Robert
I
Clotworthy.
did, because because you told me that it's Raynor from StarCraft. I was like, oh my gosh, it is. And I looked it up and everything, and you're right. You're 100% right. That is, I mean, and now we can change the subject of this entire episode to talk about that scene, because I think that
Yes.
that scene is the best action scene in a Marvel film. I'm saying it. I'm throwing it out there on the table right now. The car chase with Nick Fury in the Winter Soldier is the best action scene in any Marvel movie.
And let's not pretend the sound effects and the music building up to when the car finally breaks out of it being locked down. They bring out that freaking hammer thing that's just pounded into the side of the car. Nick's arm is busted. The vehicle is compromised. Like, there is so much tension. Is he going to get away? Ah, it's so good. I have
No,
nothing but
it's so
screams to
good.
give at this point. There are no words.
Oh, it's so good, right? I mean, I love the fact that the car AI, which is probably designed by Stark Industries, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real.
Yeah.
Uh, it wants him to do something and he tells it to not do it, right? I mean, he's like, hold on that order. And then the whole thing, the machine gun comes out and he mows them all down and then drives off and he takes the wheel because he's better than the AI. I mean, I love the chase scene. And I mean, God, the entire driving sequence and the stunts that happen with the drivers and him pushing the cars over and hitting people with this car and hitting the brakes and running over. I mean, it's a very good. It's top 10 car chase scenes in any movie. I mean, it's really good. And then at the end, Kristen, I'm sure you love that end part where Bucky shoots the magnetic bomb underneath his car and it blows up and he kind of just barely steps out of the way. I mean, it's so good.
Oh my God. And that it's just a great hit home that Bucky is clearly the villain, the top tier villain. I mean, who is this guy? He's a shadow. For God's sakes, he covers his face. We can't even see that. But yeah, you're right, because Nick manages to outwit these trained Hydra agents that are coming after him with his own skill, and only Bucky is the one that he's going to get away. Unless the Winter Soldier stops him. He was going to get away. But yeah, and I love the fact that you said he takes over driving because he's better than the AI. I didn't even notice that. Something I noticed was that they showed the steering wheel moving when the car is being driven, and it's such a little thing, but it really kind of communicates that the AI is the one driving. You don't have to go, is the AI driving? Who's
Yeah.
controlling this vehicle?
And I mean, some of these action sequences, this just shows the super talent of that Marvel action sequence team, right? I mean, I know it's a different team on all of the films, but I bet you that they have just learned off of each other since Iron Man, right? I mean, and then thinking about this, it's like, how it's one of those moments where you say, how does somebody think about doing something like this, right? So in the car chase scene, there's a part where there's a cop with an Uzi on the side that's like shooting him, and then Nick Fury thinks, you know what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get this city bus in between us. Well, if I'm an action sequence person, I'm like, okay, what he's gonna do is shoot through the bus, and then Nick Fury's gonna put the seat back in his car so that he doesn't. I mean, how do you think of that stuff? It's so good. I mean, wow, I love that car chase scene. It's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess you do it so many times that you know what you've done and you know what you haven't done. It's like Tom Cruise films. He knows what stunts he's done and what stunts he hasn't done. And eventually you're just going to have the cool shit left. And that's all you're going to be left with. But I agree with you. I hands down believe that Winter Soldier is the movie in the Marvel Universe that has defined the choreography for the fight choreography for the rest of the films. Because after this one, we really saw a concentrated effort to give each of the heroes their own recognizable fight style. I mean, you really saw this kind of come to fruition in Thor Ragnarok. He really finally came into life with his own brand of fighting because there was so much focus in this movie on Captain's shield, which I think before was really lacking, but in this one, he took down a plane with his shield, for crying out loud. That wouldn't have happened before.
Yeah, and it's so important to him even up into the last moment of the film. And I mean, another thing that they just set up so well is, the shield is basically him.
Yeah.
He's all up the shield. And moment with Bucky on the aircraft carrier at the end when he says, "I'm not fighting you," and he drops his shield and it goes like away forever, basically. It's like, whoa, like he's really making this decision that he's not gonna do this. And man, you're right. The fight choreography is great. The fight choreography that the Winter Soldier has is great. And we see that carry on into other films. And yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah. So shifting to the other famous fight scene in this film where there's another car chase because what's a spy film without a car chase? Not a spy film. I will say.
No.
So we're on the highway. We've got the Hydra guy. Bucky shows up. The good guys are thrown from the car. The shield slide on the road. So good. And they eventually have to get away from Bucky, who loves grenade launchers. And I love it. It's his weapon of choice, it seems. But this buildup, I think I really enjoy so much, is because it becomes more desperate and more personal the longer it goes on. We have Bucky starts out with a rocket launcher, then he switches to a gun, and then he gets closer and closer and closer to Captain until eventually it's a knife fight with a shield. But then the shield's gone and the knife's been put up for a bit, so it's just freaking fisticuffs. And these two people who don't know who the other is, it's just this personal, raw fight. Ah,
Yeah,
so good.
it's great. Yeah, it's great. And again, another sound design part of that part of that fight that's just so good. And man, they're really going at it. And it's fun to see because we have watched Captain America kick everyone's ass the first, 40 minutes of the movie. And then when this one comes up, he's toe to toe with somebody that can actually fight him. That's what makes it really fun to see. I mean, it's a great sequence. I mean, and then it even goes into, there's so many awesome fight sequences. The elevator scene
Oh, right?
with everybody in the elevator is really good. And they added that element of the magnetic handcuff. And it's a great fight sequence too.
Yeah, and the Bucky scene, the only reason I want to bring that up is because that one is really what helps me really like the Falcon character. It's not that I didn't like him from the start. I think he was so well done because it's not that he's a huge character. He doesn't need a characterization that's bigger than life. He's just a guy, but he's a very clear character with very clear motivations. And even though we know he's dealing with issues from his past, and I think this is a theme that carries through the rest of the movie, we're not hampered by people's pasts. Falcon isn't thrown into this fight and freaks out and he can't fight. He picks up a gun and he starts helping the captain because that's what needs to be done. And I think through all of that, each character, their past throws them forward into this action and they all face it, which I was so happy they did. We didn't have to sit for 10 minutes listening to some sad sob story about something that happened in 43.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And when they do that, it's worth it. I think. Like when they're talking about Peggy and the whole Peggy thing, I think it's worth it for us. I think seeing her in the museum and seeing the whole, way that Captain is reacting, if you didn't know what happened in the first film, it wouldn't matter. Like you would just know that he lost somebody and that person is now older and all this kind of stuff. And it's worth it because it sets it up so well.
Yeah, yeah. Now you do have a question here about the whole Peggy thing. How do we feel about it? Is it needed? Does it work? So you absolutely are on board with the Peggy romance thing.
I think that they do it just enough. I think they're just reminding us about what's going on. They remind us about how this is all happening. It gives Captain a little bit more to push forward with, and they don't spend too much time on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was heartbreaking when you find out she has, I don't know if it's dementia, but she's losing her memories. When she sees him again after she kind of wakes up and she starts crying, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh God, could you imagine being Steve Rogers having to watch that?
Yeah,
Ugh.
and their performance is so good in that moment. It's very very good. I have a theory when it comes to the next Avengers film, when it's what's related to all of this. But do you want me to say, or do
Yeah,
you want us
yeah.
to
I assume we've all seen Infinity War. If you haven't seen Infinity War, guess
go
what?
see it?
Thanos snaps his fingers.
Yeah, that's right. If you didn't
It's
hear about
cold,
that,
Mr. Stark.
yeah, he snaps his fingers. My theory is that there's going to be some sort of time stone thing that happens in the end of the film, and
Oh,
he's going to go back to the place that he should be and be with her.
I
And
think,
then
yeah.
he'll be out of the MCU because we all know that he's leaving the films. He's gonna be like, well, there's one thing that I gotta do. I gotta go on a date, and then he's gonna, take a time stone or maybe a portal or some sort of space time continuum thing with Ant-Man. Like maybe he goes back in time that way, and then at the end he'll be gone, but he'll be back with Peggy. So don't fret. Obviously, this is just a guess. I have no idea what's gonna happen.
I love this guess though. And then the question is, will there be a dry eye in the theater when it happens? Like, is this something we've all been touched by that we're just secretly hoping happens for the Cap?
Yeah, I hope it happens for him. I hope that would be a good way to go out. It'd be better than him dying.
Oh yeah, yeah. So okay,
Mhm.
and I know we're going on a tangent here, but I like this. So you think that would be better than him dying? What about Tony Stark?
I think that he will. I mean, my predictions are never right, but I'm telling you that I think he will live on. I
Yeah.
think he will live on at the end of the movie and just keep on pushing forward and then be lesser part. I don't think we'll see another Iron Man film. I don't think we'll see another movie that is really super Iron Man-y. And he'll be kind of just like this sprinkled in thing that happens in other films. I don't think we're going to lose both Captain America and Iron Man,
Yeah, that's true.
but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know about Captain, but I do think I think of the two, Captain is most likely to die, but Stark is going to be so mentally messed up from this whole situation that he will not be able to, because his character story has been so great. He's been learning how to deal, but at the same time he's been faced with so much stuff that a human should not be faced with. Like, oh, and then watching Peter Parker dissolve in front of his
Yeah.
face. My God, man.
Yeah, and if, for those of you out there that don't know, Kristen and I kind of have this fun thing going back and forth where she is a big Captain America fan and I am a big Iron Man fan. So, but I do have to say that The Winter Soldier is a movie where, I mean, it makes me like Captain America a lot. I mean, he is really a character that I think. I mean, think about the other heroes in the Avengers. None of them are really stand-up people, if you think about it. So if you're feeling in the mood to like a stand-up person, this is the movie to watch. I mean, he really is a stand-up guy.
Yeah, right. He's the boy next door, but not to a bad level, because he's willing to live too. Like the line he says, I may be old, but I'm not dead. When Widow jokes if he's kissed any, if that was his first kiss since the 40s.
Yeah.
And that's a great line because we know he's human. He admits that he's human, but he just wants everyone to be happy.
Yeah, and they have a really good writing team that does these kind of. I mean, his vernacular in the movie is very well done because he should be speaking differently than other people that are in the movie, right? Saying the things like, if you're going to fight a war, you need to have a uniform type of thing. Like, that's not something that we would think somebody would say nowadays, we think of the more Black Widow kind of way of like, oh, you can be a spy and you can go behind enemy lines and that kind of craziness. But I love it. I love his dialogue. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. And then you have here, what did I say? Robert Redford. Wow.
Yeah, I freaking love Robert Redford. He is so good in everything. And this movie is no different. I think he's great. And what I think is great about this is that it's the common conflict that we've seen in a lot of movies, right? Where it is, there's this bad guy. For example, the Dan Brown book Inferno, right? There's the bad guy in the movie that says there's only one way we can save the world, and that's if we do this thing. And this thing sucks, and it's going to hurt and kill a lot of people. And like, it's going to be bad, but we have to do it or the world is going to die, right? Same thing in the second Avengers film, Age of Ultron, right? Same thing. Like, we got to do this or the world's gonna die, type of thing, right? I'm a computer. I know by my calculations that this is gone unless we do this, right? So Robert Redford has that kind of feel in his character as well, but he's got this just swagger, and he's just this older guy, and he's so demanding and controlling with his language without being physical.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know from the second you see him on film that he's going to be playing a big role. You don't just hire Robert
No.
Redford because you want him as a cool cameo. You had to know he wasn't going to be right somehow. And it's so great because you know he doesn't take shit from anybody, especially since he's earned Nick Fury's respect. I mean, if you can earn Fury's respect, clearly you're a no shit taker kind of guy. But when he's in his house and he's drinking milk, it's just such a simple thing. He's a bad guy of very simple wants, and he's talking there with Bucky, and then his housemaid walks back in, and it's such a great way that he's like, oh, so and so, I wish he would have knocked, and then just kills her.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have Bucky do it. He murders her. And it's just so casual, like he's done it a million times before, which I'm sure he has.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's that power. You can really feel his power in the movie. I mean, and it's a powerful performance. He is really, really good. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of people that don't know who Robert Redford is, which I think is crazy. But if you don't, there's a ton of movies that are really good that have him in it. Check it out. But yeah, he's fantastic in this movie. I mean, and then I wrote down here hologram meetings, right? Do we think this is ever going to be a thing? Like, am I going to walk into a meeting one day and, everybody's all around the world and there's just like the Jedi holograms of them sitting in their chairs and we're having conversations? A, is that necessary? B, is it going to happen? And C, if you think it's necessary, why? I mean, why do I need to see you there in your hologramness?
I don't know. I mean, in VR, they're already doing it. My sister does it with her husband. They have this, as they describe it, they both have a VR thing, and they have this movie room that they sit in with each other in VR. So they could, as long as they have an internet connection, and they look over, and there's their partner's avatar right there with them. So, I mean, is that hologram or is that simply VR?
I think it's the steps towards hologram, right? I mean, it's crazy. That's like Ready Player One stuff right there. I mean, that's cool. I think that's neat, and I think it's awesome. I just don't. I see these holograms happening, and I go, "Wow, would people actually use this or want this?" This is a huge side tangent, but I thought about that when
No,
I
no,
watched
and
it.
it's a
So I
great
wrote that.
question. And I mean, I guess if you have the money and you like technology, you're totally gonna do it because that's my sister's husband. Every time we see him, he has the craziest gadgets we've ever seen. Like his car. Do you know that they have cars now where you press buttons to put it into drive or into park or into third gear? It's just a button pad.
Wow.
I had no idea. And I don't know if I'm really far behind the times, but
Yeah, I gotta push my car.
you got your feet out the bottom and you're on it Flintstone. It's great on gas.
That's
Like your
right.
calves are just
And I'm starting to look really good.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah, that's I don't know. Would you ever do VR or
I
not
mean,
VR,
yeah,
but
I've
hologram?
I was at TwitchCon a few years ago, and this is going to sound antiquated because it was a long time ago, but we played a game called Werewolf in VR at TwitchCon, and it was really cool. It was much cooler than I thought it was going to be. I had low expectations, thinking it was going to be crappy, and maybe even make me sick or whatever, but I put it on and I loved it. I thought it was really cool. I think the barrier to entry is too high right now. It's way too expensive, dumb expensive. You got to buy a $3,000 computer and then a $500 headset or whatever. So I think it's low, but as the technology becomes more available, who knows? Maybe I'll be sitting in a meeting and there'll be all these, lasers that project a hologram on in the meeting, and then I'm going to come back to this episode and say, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly. But then, too, would anybody ever come into work anymore? Or would we all just work from home?
I think we're on the path to that in some ways. My wife's family, I met with them over the holiday, and they were talking and asking me if I worked from home. And I said, no, I go to my office. And they go, oh, well, we all work from home. And there was like 6 of them. They work for different companies. They have offices in their house and they work from home. And I don't know how I feel about that for a lot of ways. There's the social aspect of it. There's also the separating work from home aspect of it. But also there's the not having to leave your house aspect of it, which I'm a big fan of, because then I never lose my parking spot.
Well, there you go. Wait, oh no, you have to fight for parking? Oh my God.
No, I don't. But Kayla does. She has to fight for parking. I park the car in the garage, but it doesn't have enough room for 2 people.
Gotcha.
And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking I should let her park in a garage.
But who would let?
She doesn't listen to the show because she has to listen to me talk too much. So I'm not worried about her hearing that.
Oh, I found it. So Robert Redford, there was a movie, 1975, 3 Days of the Condor, which when I was looking up films like whatever film we're talking about now, Holograms of the Future,
Winter
Captain
Soldier?
America and the Holograms. Winter Soldier. This one came up as a big recommendation. So
really, I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it out. Obviously, my favorite one is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He's in that, and that's really good.
That's
so it's
the
also
Sting is the one that I really like.
Oh, Sting is so good. Butch Cassidy is also like a 4-hour movie. So if you are looking for an entire half of your day, watch that one.
There we go. And I like this, the great timing with comedy and action, as with pretty much all Marvel films.
Yeah, and this one is really good because it's relatable. There's the comedy in Thor Ragnarok, there's the comedy in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's the comedy even in Iron Man, and it's all good, but this one I feel like is relatable on a more human level, obviously. So yeah, I just think the dialogue is great. They have a formula for this thing, and it goes 2 ways for me. One, these movies have a formula, and that's kind of boring in some ways, right? But the other half of it is it doesn't make a million bazillion trillion dollars if it doesn't work, right? And it works. Obviously, they're able to make these movies. People enjoy them. Whatever level they're enjoying it is different than, watching, some other super Oscar nominated film. But the formula works and the dialogue works and it makes people happy and they watch these movies, and I just think it's great.
Yeah. And you have to have heart with it. And I think comedy really helps with having a lot of heart in a film. But of course, there's that thin line, what's too much comedy and what's not enough action kind of a thing, which I think Thor Ragnarok definitely towed the line with, which was pretty cool. I don't think it was too much of either, but it was definitely the most comedic. And luckily, the director is a great comedian.
Oh, yeah. The comedy in that movie is really, really well done. Guardians is up there, I think, with that comedy aspect of it. Talk about a movie that I had no expectations for. Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought it looked so dumb. I didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy. And then I watched it and was like, whoa, that is good.
Oh, no way. See, it took me the second one before I got the first one, because the first one I just couldn't I was like, who are these people? The acting's okay. The story's all right, I guess. But then I saw the second one, and I really like Ego. He's such, oh, it was so great. I love Ego. You knew he was a bad guy. You just were waiting for the reveal, and it was a wonderful reveal. I loved it. And then I realized that the first Guardians is just a group of friends getting together playing D&D.
Yep.
That's all it is. And as soon as I thought of it like that, I was like, I get it now. I freaking get it. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend a whole episode talking about those films, and we probably will someday.
I know. I feel like now that we have one Marvel Universe film, everyone we do, we're just gonna bring up all of the, because you can't talk about one Marvel film without the other Marvel films, sort of.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. Is like they're all really good, and other people are trying to mimic this formula, and they can't do it. Like, for example, DC, obviously there's whatever issues are going on over there, but the one that really opens my mind to it is sorry, I blanked for a second, is the new Mummy film with Tom
Yeah.
Cruise.
Okay.
Right, so that movie was supposed to be part of a universe that Universal was making called Dark Universe, right? And they were going to take all of these monster movies and redo them, and then have an Avengers-esque movie in the middle that put all of these heroes together, right? And Tom Cruise was supposed to be their Iron Man, was supposed to be their Tony Stark that started this whole thing up, right? But it fell flat on its face. They just can't, and they canceled the whole program. They canceled everything about Dark Universe. And so, I mean, what Marvel's got going on here is working, and they should just keep it going, question mark. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's all gonna land on Captain Marvel if it's gonna keep going or not. Because we all know we're gonna see part 2 of Infinity War. That's just a done deal as far as I'm concerned. Because the way the story was handled with the first one, I am stoked to see how they deal with the repercussions, because I don't expect them to shy away from stuff. I think the movie was just so complete. You could end it there and I'd be happy. But
Yeah.
but I think Captain Marvel is really gonna make or break the next generation of Marvel films, since
Yeah.
Infinity War is the end of this first one.
And I think that I'm keeping an open mind at the end of Infinity War, because I am going to have a major problem with this second film if Captain Marvel is like in some cliche way not able to help. So this is my whole problem with this, right? So Nick Fury pulls out the pager and says, oh, this is a moment. We need Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Pages Captain Marvel and then disappears, right?
Yeah.
Where was Captain Marvel when the aliens were invading New York City?
Yeah.
Nick Fury thought to himself, you know what? This is bad, but we're going to be good. Where was Captain Marvel when an entire city that was going to destroy the population of Earth was floating over the planet and about to drop down and kill everyone? This is bad, but we don't need Captain Marvel yet. I am so curious, and I'm
The justification.
yeah, the pessimism in my voice is there, because if she's cryogenically frozen and she can only come out for this thing, or if she's off on another, adventure, whatever, I'm going to have a problem with it. So I hope that they handle that very well. And I think another prediction, just because we're on this topic.
Oh, yeah.
Another prediction is, so in the original Infinity War, we don't see how Thanos gets the first Infinity Stone.
Oh.
He has it in the first part of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's from Xandar, right? He goes and he kills everyone on Xandar and gets the first Infinity Stone. And Xandar is the planet that's in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So he already has it. My hope is that they tie that into Captain Marvel in some way, where maybe the end of the Captain Marvel film is her on Xandar fighting Thanos and doing this whole thing, and then they get defeated and he gets the first Infinity Stone. I don't know, obviously. And yeah, that's about it. But I'm very concerned with how they're going to handle Captain Marvel, because where has she been? And it better be some good excuse that she hasn't come and helped before.
I'm right there with it. And I like your idea that they would tie it to the first stone, because then I feel there's a purpose, and they would come up with something that isn't just half-assed. And I think we've gotten to the point where most Marvel movies, 80% of them have incredible writing story-wise. Like, it's been planned out. So yeah, I'm skeptical. I am very skeptical about what's going to happen. But like, and I say I'm worried about the Captain Marvel movie because that's going to be the plot that is going to tie it to our current universe. And if
For
they
sure.
flub it, that's it.
It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll be okay. It'll all be okay. We just get us to the second movie. All right. Okay, so you've met the captain. He's got his list out. What do you tell him to check out?
World of Warcraft? Duh.
Oh, dude, that's legit. Oh my god, I guess he wouldn't have known video games.
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is at the beginning of the film, Captain America is told to listen to some tunes, and so he pulls out a book, and it's called his catch-up list, and he's got all this stuff that he needs to know because he's been asleep for, 50, 60 years, whatever. And on his list now is like Thai food, Star Wars, Star Trek, Nirvana, Steve Jobs, and a lot of other stuff. But I think he needs to know about World of Warcraft, in my opinion.
So in that case, do we start him on Pong and slowly move him up so he can see the progression, or do you just throw him in World of Warcraft and say good luck?
I think we just throw him in. He's Captain America. He can do it.
What do you
He would
think he would
totally roll a paladin.
Oh
A
yeah,
paladin for sure.
he's Alliance too. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, for sure.
With the blue theme, yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What do you put on the list?
Oh man, World of Warcraft is such a great answer. What do you put on the list? I mean, I guess classic Diablo. If we're going with video games, you give him Diablo, you give him StarCraft.
My other thing was going to be Auntie Anne's Mall pretzels.
Oh.
But
Oh, snap. Zoolander is the one I'd put on his list.
Zoolander. There you go. Hell yeah.
Oh man, those pretzels are so good. I haven't had one in ages.
Me either.
All right. So, metal arm or shield? Which one do you choose? You don't
This is
have to
hard.
pretend die and lose your arm in a traumatic way. It could be a peaceful transition.
This is hard because Captain makes the shield look so cool. But if you didn't watch the movie, you'd be like, metal arm? Duh. So I'm going to go with metal arm because you have to be skilled to use the shield. And if you just carry it around, people will think it's just a replica. But if you have a metal arm, you're a badass.
Right? No, and then no, who's going to take your metal arm away from you? No one. So you're always going to have it for a fight. So good. All right, so you're a bad guy and you get to store your brain in a computer in reference to a character we didn't even get to today. It's, it's the Hydra bad guy who's put his brain in a computer in a basement. Big reveal that Hydra's infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. over the past few decades. So what aesthetic is your room? Like, what time period of computers do you have?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm going to fall back on that. I mean, I don't know. What I think, I definitely wouldn't have my own voice for sure. So that would add to the aesthetic. Okay, I'm going to go off the wall here. I'm going to say that I want like a Don Draper Mad Men office room where it's like a 1960s, like an early 1960s office with like a smoking cigarette on the table. And then I want the voice to actually be John Hamm.
Oh, sick. I love it.
Who is one of my favorite actors of all time. That's who I want to portray my mind in a computer.
That's kick-ass.
What about you?
That's so cool. I'm thinking like Minority Report where it's touchscreen and everything.
Ooh.
And then when I talk, my face is created by the data. Because I love it, when you have the code going and you see the face kind of come through.
Oh, you win. That is, I love that Minority Report aesthetic. I think it was so well done. We should talk about that movie someday too.
Right? We should just have a Tom Cruise apocalypse. Tom Cruise year where we go through all of his best films. And by that, I
I
mean
love it.
all Tom Cruise films.
Duh.
All right. And if you like this one, Jeff, what do you recommend our lovely listeners watch?
Obviously, there's all the other Marvel films. I mean, if you like this, you got to see where it goes, and it goes some crazy places. Uh, there is a cool thing on the website you can find, which what order should I watch the Marvel films in?
Oh,
It's an interesting thing, and just search it in Google and you'll find it, and then watch them all if you haven't. Which I'm sure if you're listening to this, you have, and if not, uh, do it because they're good stuff. Also, I put Mission Impossible Fallout on here because it feels like the same type of movie to me.
yeah.
The newest Mission Impossible, also all of the Mission Impossibles kind of have that feel to it. Casino Royale is probably, I mean, it is basically the same movie if you think about it. I mean, there's a lot of jumping and parkour, and I love Casino Royale. Have you seen that?
Oh, totally. I've seen that one way more than I think any other James Bond film.
Yeah, and it's the best. I mean, it's very, very good. And Daniel Craig is, ripped and beating the crap out of people. And just, I mean, if you like this movie, you'll like Casino Royale. What did you think?
I was thinking Enemy of the State, the Will
Good
Smith one, classic, nice. Who can you trust? Who can't you trust? We just watched Goldeneye last night, and I would say watch Goldeneye just because, there's a fun little twist at the end. And also,
And a woman that kills people with her thighs.
that one always amuses me to watch because physically, can you do it? I've seen video of women that crush watermelons with their thighs.
Wow.
So can you
I'm sure you
create enough
could.
force to crack a rib cage enough to prevent
I mean, if you can dodge a wrench,
you can,
you can
kill
dodge
a
a
man with your
dodgeball.
legs.
That's right. No, but I do remember that. I remember I haven't seen it, Kristen, probably in 15 or 20 years, GoldenEye. But I do remember that and Boris.
Yeah, everyone remembers Boris, but he's such a cute, well, not a cute, but he's such a fun character. Okay, but I will say this. If you do go back to watch Goldeneye, listen to the soundtrack for me. It doesn't quite match what's going on in the film. So you have James Bond walking through a casino, kind of hunting down his sexy prey. And like the music is this really swelling, sweet thing of violins. And you're like, wow, he's going to find his true love in this. It doesn't match the scene at all.
Kristen, direct quote, hunting down his sexy prey. That's every James Bond movie in a nutshell, hunting down his sexy prey.
That's a good
Hilarious.
point. Yeah,
Hilarious.
I need to differentiate better if we're going to do this. If we're going to talk about James Bond. And then the last one, I think, which was really fun, definitely falls on the more fun side rather than serious side, is Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Yeah. Very good. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. When we were talking about action sequences. The Kingsman Secret Service action sequence is one of my favorites at the end of the film. I won't spoil it. I won't spoil that because we're not talking about it today, but you should watch that movie if you haven't seen it. It kind of flies under the radar. The second one is not good.
Oh,
But the
that's
first
what I've
one is
heard.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first one was surprisingly good, but yeah, I didn't hear too many good things
Yeah.
about the second one. And will this one stand the test of time? I'm talking about Captain America, of course, not
Not
Kingsman.
Kingsman. Yes, I wrote down here for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Yes, yes, yes. I think it stands alone. It's its own. I wrote down here an amazing grouping of action, heart, and honest performances. And the viewer doesn't need to know anything about the universe. This movie, more than most Marvel movies, you can watch it and like it without knowing anything related to any other movie that's happening. So for that reason, yes, I do think it will.
Awesome. And what's next?
Oh, we're going ham on this. We're watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can find it on Netflix, believe it or not. That's amazing. This one is another movie I think we can both quote, Kristen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Marion. I just have. Oh my God. Ah, I get really excited about something when I can't even form words, and I just start making weird sounds. It's a weird habit I have. But yes, also, and I found out too, Netflix actually has all 3 of the, maybe 4 of the Indiana Jones films. So if you haven't seen the trilogy and you have Netflix, check out the trilogy. Even Temple of Doom is worth checking out. That was the first Indiana Jones that I saw, and I fell in love with Indiana Jones. So it wasn't that bad. The heart
No,
thing was
it's
cool.
fine. And yeah, I mean, if you just take it for what it is, and I also think that that's an opportunity we can talk about in our next episode, talking about Indiana Jones in general. But
Yeah.
that might be a good challenge for people out there that are listening to this for the next episode, is to kind of think about, if you think about the fourth Indiana Jones film, which is the newest one, a lot of people were upset with the way that it took it to a different level. At least they thought it did. But really take the time and go back and watch the other Indiana Jones films and see if it really was just on that level the whole time. It wasn't presented in a way that made it believable. Think about it, because that's something I'd like to hear your opinion on.
I like that. Yeah. Was it presented believably? Like, I would say the 3 originally did very well.
Right.
Yeah, you 100% buy it. Aw, kick-ass. All right, so if you want to share your thoughts, you can tweet us at TPAcast or email talkingpicturesalliance@gmail.com. And Jeff, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Jeff Reynolds, where we're talking about a lot.
Ooh, but you've been talking about a game recently that you've been into.
Yeah, there's this board game called Gloomhaven, which I've
Yes.
been playing with some friends at work. It's like an RPG, huge, massive game. Check it out if you want a truly epic board game experience that takes place over like 75 3-hour sessions. Check it out. It's crazy.
Holy cow. Well, Gloomhaven, check it out. That's amazing. All right, if you're looking for me, you can find me at _Kristen Ashton _ Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. And as for the show, you can find us here, twitch.tv/Kristen Ashton, every other Sunday for more movie madness. And we'll be back January 20th with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And if you'd like to support this podcast, head on over to patreon.com/TPAcast. All right, Jeff, any final words?
On your left.